I was born with my left eye permanently closed. What it meant is that my life was always in the medical area. They started plastic surgery on me at age 2. I didn't really realise I had a problem until I got to school. When I got to school, I discovered that kids are so creative when it comes to name calling. I mean, there were 100 awful names that I got, but 2 that I heard nearly every day. They would say, "Lisa, you are so ugly and you look dumb." I was 5. Where did they get this stuff from? I would run home to my mother. I remember just throwing myself into her arms and saying, "Mum, it's not fair." And my beautiful mother, who knew all about life not being fair, 13th child raised by her grandmother, grabbed my little face and pulled me in really close, looked deep into my eyes and said, "Life's not fair." I said, "Is that it?" She said, "No." She said, "If you don't like it, don't do it to others." I said, "That's not fair." She said, "Correct." I love the fact that my mother taught me at a young age one of the most important relationship skills we can have, and that is life is as fair as we make it for one another. Life is as fair as you make it for the person next to you and for the person that you're thinking that you might like to put a little bit of effort into in the future. Life is as fair as we make it. But she did happen to mention, she said, "Sweetheart, your father and I think you're very smart." I said, "Pretty would have been better." But smart's not bad. So when I got to school and the kids would say, "You're ugly," I would stand there and quietly say to myself, "But I'm smart. My mum says so." I've got to tell you, hundreds and hundreds of times throughout my primary schooling did I tell myself that I was something that was spoken over me. I'm smart, I'm smart, I'm smart. You might say I'm dumb, but I'm smart. Do you understand that a child starts to move in the direction of their dominant thought? And my behaviour changed. I started to ask more questions, put my hand up. I started to be eager to learn because something was happening inside of me. I was believing that I truly was smart. And it's interesting because I went to a girls' school in secondary school, and they moved some of the girls. When we got to year 12, the girls that were doing the science subjects and maths were moved from the girls' school into the boys' school. So just imagine, please, 13 girls moving in with 186 year 12 boys. Heaven, heaven. I mean, it was heaven for the other girls, but it was hell for me. Because halfway through the school year, 3 of my supposedly good male friends scratched on my locker a new name. They wrote this for all 800 boys to read. "Good on ya, bung-eye." I was devastated. I felt like the boys had just taken a knife and plunged it into me and say, "What you look like is what you are and you can't change it." I wanted to scream out and say, "Can't you see there's more to me than meets the eye?" Unfortunately, I didn't think of that line. And I said nothing. All the conversation was in my head. And I got out of their way, I got on with my studies, and I just tried to come to grips with what you did with a new name like that. End of year school social came. Well, I did what single girls sometimes do. I sort of sat a little bit out of the way, and I just picked out the cutest guy in the room, and I just followed him with my eyes. And if he'd look at me, I'd look away. And then I'd find him again, and I'd just follow him around the room. He'd look at me, I'd look away. 2.5 hours of light entertainment. At the end of the night, that young man courageously walked all the way from the far corner across the dance floor, right up in front of me, and stuck his hand out. He said, "Hello, I just wanted to introduce myself to you. I've noticed that you've been winking at me all night." And I thought I had a handicap. I had a built-in asset. But you need to understand that for 17 years, I had allowed people to laugh at me. It was this young man that revealed that I could actually get people to laugh with me instead of at me. If I would be brave enough to point out my differences, my little uniqueness before other people got to it, then I would allow everyone to relax with my little insecurity. Do you know, when I accept myself and speak words of acceptance over me, then I make it easier for you to do the same thing. And when we are together, we make it easier for others to come into our circle and accept one another. The words are so important, and the lightness and the sense of humour. The most important words that you will ever hear in your whole life are the words you say to yourself, about yourself. What do you need to be saying? At this age, at this stage of your life, what do you need to label you? What are the words that you wear every single day over your life like a banner? Did you put them there, or did somebody else put them there? If you're going to change these words, you're going to need to do what I did, and that is go into training. So let me just show you how I did that. Everyone just stand up, please, for a moment. I want you to bend your knees to 45 degrees. So like this. That's right. Now, you don't bounce. Just don't stick your bottom out. Make your back straight and push your knees over your toes until you can feel the stress on this muscle group. These are called the quadriceps. They pump almost more blood to the brain than any other muscle group. This is a fantastic position for learning environments. You cannot fall asleep in this position. And what this position is really called is pain. Now, some of you have just realised that it's starting to hurt. But we are the TEDx crowd. We are into growth. So we aren't going to stand up. We're going to go 10% beyond pain. Down you come. Now, this is called agony. Come back 10%. Isn't pain easy after agony? Oh, he's not convinced. Down again. See, it's hard to live like this. It's hard to sustain this. And take a seat. Thank you. Pain. Pain has a purpose. Pain is not in our life just to make us miserable. Pain is part of the training. Pain is taking us, forcing us sometimes out of our comfort zone and moving us towards where we want to go. It is going to take effort. The name calling was agony. But pain is the discipline it takes to move my head from what other people said to what I want to say. And that's how I started to take my message to teenagers. I was 26 years old, and I set, I'm going to say it was a wild, hairy, audacious goal. It was way out there when I said to my parents, I am going to help 1 million Aussie teenagers. I'm going to teach them how to dream, break the dream down and set some goals, and solve problems along the way. And fortunately for me, I had parents that were dreamers. And they said, why don't you just get started? And you know, I started to go into schools, and I was a terrible speaker. And the kids would throw paper aeroplanes across the classroom in the middle of my presentation. But I understood I was in training. It wasn't going to be easy. There was going to be discomfort, and I would need to find a way to learn how to take what was in my heart for these people and put it out in a way that they could receive it. Little did I know that going into the schools of Australia would then catapult me into the corporate conferences of this country and eventually around the world. The adults who loved the message would take me to places that I had never even dreamed of. Places like Russia and Israel and Africa. And I remember thinking, how did I get here? How did this happen? And then I just look back and think about all the training I did in my quiet, private place, in my own home, in my own life, learning the words that would help me to win in relationships, help me to win in sport, help me to win in just the way I did life. And I want to share with you 3 phrases that pay. I've got a top 10 of these, but I want to give you 3 today that I hope you're going to be able to use all day. The first phrase is one that you probably need when you've got very, very irritated, annoyed, or angry. Now, I don't know what you say when you're angry, but I got my temperament tested when someone cuts me off on the freeway. You know, don't tell me what comes out of your mouth. But what came out of my mouth wasn't so lovely because the 2 children in the car seats behind me repeated it perfectly. So I went, all right, this is not working for my family. I need new vocabulary. And so I tried to come up with a word. What could I say when I'm really, really angry? And then I came up with it. A nice, long, 4-syllable word. Fascinating. That driver was fascinating. How many of you need a word like this? Everybody say the word 3 times. Go. Fascinating, fascinating, fascinating. Now notice what it does to you. It releases a little tension. It takes a little time. It gives you a moment to laugh at yourself, and it lightens you up. So every time that I would say fascinating, the kids would repeat it, so I'd get the double benefit. But I started to realise that instead of me moving towards road rage, I moved towards self-control, a light-heartedness, and an ability to turn the situation from a negative to a little bit of fun. So fascinating has been a friend of mine. And you know, I've got to say that sometimes I'll look at my children and say, they're fascinating. And even my husband has been known to accuse me of being fascinating. And it's not a negative word. That's just the point, isn't it? It's just a word, and it gives release to a particular type of feel. So let me give you phrase number 2. Phrase number 2 is ideal for sport. Now, I've grown up in a family with professional tennis players. My dad, semi-professional. My 2 brothers, professional. Oh, I guess all the talent was gone by the time they got to me. So when I was learning to play tennis, my coordination was absolutely terrible. I mean, my dad used to stand out on the road and throw me balls. And he would throw and I would miss. And he would throw and I would miss. And well, we'd just go through a whole bucket of balls. And then as we picked up the balls, my dad would say to me, "It's really fun playing tennis with you, Lisa. One day you're going to be a very good tennis player." Now, notice, my father was in his heyday. My father was giving equal time to his daughter who showed no talent, and my father spoke words of life over me. He told me it was a delight to be with me and that the future would get better. And I'm very, very grateful because for 6 months he threw buckets of balls before I ever connected. I was looking like a lost cause. Last season we won our first A-grade midweek competition, and you know, sometimes you wait 30 years, doesn't matter. So all I want you to see is that the phrases that pay count so much. Third phrase. Oh, no, the phrase that we need that I didn't teach you is that what you've got to do is when you've run and you've actually decided that you've missed the ball, you've made a mistake, you say, that's not like me. Everyone say it, please. Now, you could look at the person next to you and say, that's not like you either. So we need these phrases. And the third phrase is, I'm sorry, I was wrong and you were right. Yes, it's like chewing glass. And all I want to say to you now is this. What's coming out of your mouth and what are you going to do about it? Thanks very much.